The Heed the Call podcast wishes all you hedonists a happy and healthy new year.
Absolutely. New Year's Eve 2024. Unbelievable. I didn't think we'd ever make it to the end of this particular yellow brick road, and to be doing this show on the final day of the year, what a blessing it is. Dan Hanzus, Marc Sessler, Conor Orr, Justin Gravedigger on the ones and twos. Happy New Year's Eve. Mark, how you doing? What's your plan? I see it. Whoa, Cozy Inn hoodie. Love it. Did not know the Cozy Inn, our old haunt in Culver City, right down the road from the old offices at NFL Media, had merch. The fact that the Cozy Inn got their merch out before our show is really an indictment of us, but that's a cool shirt. I want one.
It is telling. It's actually a sweatshirt, and it's a heavy sweatshirt, and I'm in a room with no ventilation, so we'll see how this goes. Probably how I go at the Cozy for the most part. But yes, I wish that we could have. I was thinking about buying one for the entire group, but it took the woman there about 25 minutes to find this, so I didn't want to add too much labor to her docket.
Yes. Conor, you are a family man. I mean, I am as well, and Mark, you are as well. Like, we're all men with children. And,
Mark's like a PS on that. Like, also Mark, yeah.
But we don't know what you're doing for New Year's Eve. You have a different setup. You're in Hollywood. I'm sure you're doing probably
very
something
wholesome.
You might not even be wanting to do.
Well, it's very wholesome. I'm having my two sons up to enjoy the night together.
That's really nice.
Yeah, we're gonna build Lego
I'm sorry.
sets.
For some reason, I kind of imagine you going to like a rave or something tonight.
I get that. And like but I'm not in the mood for that. So,
Conor, I love New Year's Eve as an adult, as a dad, as a husband, so much more than I loved it as a teenager, and certainly in my 20s when it was just a giant source of anxiety on a number of levels.
Yeah,
do you agree?
The pressure of. Like, I'm just thinking back to, like, getting tickets to this, like, club to go New Year's Eve and, like, you know, figuring out an outfit that would get you in the door and how much you got to spend. And then there's, like, no bathroom there. And it's just, like, this whole, like, I remember being in a cab going from my buddy's apartment in Midtown to this art gallery where they had this like big trendy New Year's Eve party, and like we had pre-gamed so much that like we were just in the middle of like, you know, Broadway, and I was like, you have to pull over because I have to pee right now. Like there's no, and it just like running into like a Chinese restaurant and just screaming like, where's the bathroom? And like that to me kind of, you know, juxtapose that with my New Year's Eve now, which is so nice, you know, and I don't have to worry about that anymore, you know?
Yeah, that gave me a flashback, especially if you grew up in the tri-state area, when you would pay $100 to have access to one of the bars in New York City. So they would charge that, and that would give you an open bar, and you would have a place to be. But if you weren't 21 yet, you're online with a fake ID on New Year's Eve after you bust into the city or took the train into the city, and everything's on the line. I mean, and then of course, then you would go in there, and I remember one year there was like the coat check got foobarred out, and everyone in like 2001 had the same like dark navy pea coat, and I remember somebody stole my pea coat that I had just gotten for Christmas, so I took someone else's pea coat that was in that closet, which is some real like New York dirtbag behavior, but it had to happen. It had to happen. Anyway, I can't wait for tonight. It's going to be fun. Kids
You
get to
do.
stay up till midnight.
You let them stay up.
We were able to, yeah.
Okay.
We started last year. But we took it as far as we could with like tricking them into the East Coast New Year, but now we let them roll till midnight. So
what's the harm in that? And also, you've got your own pea coat now. They've got their own pea coats. Everyone's, you know, more controlled.
I remember, like, again, I don't say it was it's kind of a La Raville Magnifico that I went and I took someone else's coat, and it wasn't the design, but I remember it was a different time when you're in your 20s that someone stole my Old Navy pea coat, and I ended up with a J. Crew pea coat. So yeah,
but also somehow the correct size and everything. That's what I call a coup d'etat on the final day of the year.
Now I can only hope that the person who stole my coat I took his coat, but there might be someone who was truly shit out of luck. But anyway, we turn the page. Coming up on today's show.
I was going to say, I think you would not be surprised that the centerpiece of my New Year's now involves cable television. And I Zoom with my college roommate and his wife, who are good friends. And because we used to spend New Year's Eve together as like young adult couples.
Very good friends, Dan.
We watch Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve together on our respective TVs. And like it's the same routine every year, but I just love it and I look forward to it, where it's like, wow, Naughty by Nature's performing. Remember those guys? And like you just roll your eyes and you're like, how old do these fucking people look? And it's so wholesome, but I really do love it. So
I'm with you too. I love that. I love Conor Orr's
Adventures in Cable Television.
I'm with you. I'm all on.
Oh, yeah.
I'm all on the dial on New Year's Eve. That's what I'm all about. All right, today's show. Since it is New Year's Eve, we're going to do some New Year's Eve resolutions for NFL podcasters. Okay, because God knows that we aren't perfect. We try our best and we try to learn from our mistakes, and I think that's part of growth as a human. And James Palmer, our buddy, is going to join us for that conversation. But first, let us start by closing the door on Week 17, Monday Night Football. A game with no meaning. The Lions, it didn't matter if they won or lost on Monday night. Week 18, Sunday Night Football against the Vikings will determine their fate as the 1 seed or a 5 seed. And yet, against the 49ers team, also with nothing to play for, but played like they did have a lot to play for, Dan Campbell said, it's not our style to rest. It's not our style to punt on any game. And hot damn, he's an easy man to respect. Let's get into it. Dun, dun, dun. Yes, the Detroit Lions. They went for it. They left their guys in, and they showed us a lot what we like about them, a lot what makes people nervous about them, and ultimately what they've done all year, which is win 40-34 over a game 49ers team. The Lions moved to 14-2 and an undefeated 8-0 away from Ford Field. Marc Sessler, this was a fun game. This was a game without a lot of defense. And for Detroit, I thought it was the recipe for how they can win a Super Bowl, which is, we know our defense isn't going to be great, but if we could just make a couple plays, a couple turnovers even, that's all it takes to let our offense take control, and that's how they won this one.
I loved that, beyond the fact that you put your starters in there, because really they're not a team that can rest 14 guys just because they're already starting on defense, so many guys that weren't starters to begin with. But to go get tested by an amped up Kyle Shanahan on the road, where it's like, I thought Shanahan and the Niners brought everything they could, and they played with a lot of like fire themselves and gave the Lions defense everything. And I thought back to that Giants team, the second Giants team that beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I think they were like ranked like 30th or 31st in defense and got there somehow. And it's like, it kind of makes, I think, the Lions roster forget what we don't have. Here's what we do have. And maybe our defense is compromised, and maybe we need to go win shootouts. But Goff starting the way he did, the offense starting the way they did, it's like we can win any type of game anywhere. And it's just this like fire coming out of the soul of Dan Campbell that's like, I'm going to tell the reporters this until they learn it. I'm going to tell the players this until they learn it. I'm going to tell the city of Detroit. I'm going to tell the rest of the league. We are not stopping. We're going to do it our way. And it brings faith. I think this roster, and this matters, they feel like they can go anywhere and do anything. And it has a lot to do with the nucleus coming out of the middle part of Dan Campbell's body just exploding over society. And I think it's one of the more interesting ways to coach a team, and I'm all for it.
Let's hear from Dan Campbell.
Yeah, it was on my mind. I thought a lot about it. I thought about it leading up to the game. I thought about it last night. I told the staff. But I ended up settling on the right thing to do was play these guys. And because we owed it to the team, man, it's all good. That's what we do. You know what I mean? This is what we do. Like, we love it hard. And this is our deal right now. So we're looking forward to this. Everything about this week.
Dan Campbell not only played his starters, but whether it was him or Aaron Glenn, are green lighting safety blitzes up 12 with like a minute 48 to play in this game. And this is before Brock Purdy gets pulled out of the game and attempted 16 straight passes on what may or may not be a destroyed, surgically repaired arm. I love the ruthlessness of it, and if that's like your whole like milieu, you have to hammer that home, and you can't just all of a sudden at the end of the season be like, we're gonna sit Jared Goff and Penei Sewell because we're not gonna try that hard. But my main takeaway here, guys, is that with Purdy, like, this is such a catastrophic thing, even if he's okay generally, because now you're going into the negotiating window. Now you're going into the period where Sam Darnold's available. Now you're going into this massive sea of unknown. And I think that I all along believed, and I could say with probably some degree of confidence, that the 49ers planned on paying him. I don't necessarily, and I haven't made calls on it since everything happened last night, but I don't think I could say that anymore,
Yeah, Brock Purdy, he left the game late in the fourth quarter after hurting his throwing elbow on a sack. He said after the game the elbow doesn't feel the best. He also said it felt like it was on fire. Now, here's where I'll talk about my baseball fandom, when the worst thing ever you want to hear with a pitcher is Tommy John surgery. We know that Purdy's already had one before. And a lot of times a guy will have an elbow issue and they'll be like, the UCL appears intact. But they do more testing. And so I just want to say, we got to continue to cross our fingers for Purdy's sake that he's going to come through this and didn't suffer ligament damage, because you're right. I mean, it would be, the worst, because the game was decided at that point. The Niners had been knocked out of the playoffs a week earlier. And beyond that, even, Brock Purdy played awesome in that game. I know he threw the 2 interceptions, but especially in the first half, that is almost the best I've seen him play. And then just a reminder, even though I think the Niners, I still feel they need to think long and hard as they spin forward out of this disappointing year, whether to make Purdy a top 5 paid quarterback. But this game was one of those reminders, I thought, Mark, about when Purdy is on, when Purdy is locked in, he is a really fun guy to watch, and he could absolutely shred you. And that's what he did to the Lions. Now, that also reminds us that the Detroit defense is kind of a mess. And it's going to put an immense amount of pressure on this offense in the postseason when, obviously the stakes are sky high. I'm nervous about the Lions. I got to be real with you. I'm watching this game. I'm nervous about them. I feel like there is a recipe for playoff demise baked into too much being put on Jared Goff and mistakes that could happen as a result. But in the here and now, they do find a way, and they've been doing it all year.
What I kind of love about what happened last night is it's kind of the worst it's going to get. You're going to give up a flood of points and yardage and get kind of filleted by a quarterback, and your offense needs to pick up the slack. And that's what happened last night, because I don't think it would be that much worse against a Green Bay or a Minnesota necessarily. So just that in a lab, it's cool, we went through it and we can do it again. One little note on the Niners, because part of me, and I mentioned, I think we had some text last night where I said, I wish they could college committee the playoffs and just replace the Texans and put the Niners in the AFC and just see what happens there with the way they played last night. All that aside, you do see these little building blocks for the future, because I think this has been the most depressing Shanahan season. But Isaac Guerrero, Ricky Parasol, these are players that stepped up big time last night. And so there's this there's these elements of hope for this roster that I think feels aged, overpaid, and in a rough place. There are these elements of hope. And so the idea of Brock Purdy, to Conor's point, I think they're suddenly in a very weird place with what they do with him. But the other question is, there is the Sam Darnold thing out there. But other than that, who else is it? Who do you go get? Because other teams and fan bases thinking the same thing, Seattle, and just dump our guy and start over. For who?
The name that comes to mind, and now he's a depressed asset right now, but Kirk Cousins, who there's been a connection between Shanahan and Cousins forever. And I know people are kicking dirt on Cousins' grave now, and I understand he's had a bad year. But Cousins in that offense, another year removed from Achilles, I would not rule that out as being a happy marriage.
And Shanahan has a crush on him. We know that. So
yes. Yeah. And by the way, MVP of this game, to the point we're making about the Detroit defense, is Kirby Joseph, because he had both of the interceptions. And I don't think they win the game if they don't have someone that steps up and turns the ball over to get some stops. It's the only way this Lions defense can get stops. So I don't know. That is what I came out of this game thinking, guys, that we're all rooting for the Lions. We love the way they attack the game. I love, like you were saying, like not only are they aggressively scheming. Ben Johnson burned another trick play, another beautiful hook and ladder on a great Jameson Williams touchdown. They didn't care. They said we went there to win the game, and that's exactly the type of team you want to watch through an entire playoff run. And the people of Detroit see their first Super Bowl. But man, I'm nervous. I don't like the way this is set up. And seeing Aaron Glenn, all those shots of Aaron Glenn searching for answers that aren't there. Maybe they get healthy. Maybe they get guys back and they put some things together. But the offense has to be perfect in the playoffs to win a Super Bowl. And that's a high bar. That's it. Not to be like Debbie Downer on New Year's Eve, but like that was my big takeaway from the game.
I think you're right for the most part, but you also have to remember that like there is such a luck element to every single Super Bowl run where it's like, you know, there's going to be some weird fumble, sure, there's going to be some weird tip ball, and it's like the team who tends to get those. And I think if the Lions get those, then they're still like, as a totality, probably like a couple hairs above most of the other teams in the NFL.
Deebo Samuel, 1 catch for 5 yards, by the way, on 1 target. I think Deebo Samuel is going to be ancient history on the 49ers next year. And to your point, Mark, Pearsall is a player. Looks like they hit on that draft pick. Man, I did
the thing too where I texted you, and then 8 seconds later he had a massive play. Like that doesn't happen to Mark too often, but it happened last night. So.
All right. Well, good job, Mark. That was
well.
Awesome.
I got to take it where I can get it.
Right. He 8 for 141 and a touch on 10 targets, and he made that beautiful one-handed catch. Is that when you sent the text, Mark?
Well, it was 8 seconds before the catch.
Ooh, goosebumps. Yeah. So yeah, and Garendo, there are pieces there. Let's just cross our fingers. Hope Purdy's okay, and then see what happens for the rest in this offseason, which is such a huge offseason for the Niners. One thing, loved it. My favorite moment, maybe the entire season, was Jake Bates working on a sore hip, the kicker for the Lions. I hope you're watching the show on YouTube. This is the preferred method of distribution for Heed the Call. And here he is. I why is the tongue out? Why? That's one of multiple questions. So yes, I did enjoy Joe Buck having some fun with this one. Troy Aikman, I wish I would have heard what Troy Aikman's thoughts on this were when he was like 5 Troy Aikman America beers deep. But he kind of kept it pretty close to the vest overall.
He's making love to that grass.
Yeah. Speaking of making love, Justin, what are your New Year's Eve plans? Mr. Engagement. Look at that. This is going to be fun. It's going to be a nice night in front of the fire, isn't it?
Yeah. So my parents are pretty big social people, and they're having a massive party at their house tonight. And my mom and her best friend arranged a scavenger hunt around the city where we live in for 50 people to compete with. So they made a bunch of clues and
take that,
all these people,
Connor. I don't see you doing that in your New Jersey suburbs.
Is that even legal?
Damn.
That doesn't
Level
even sound
up,
legal
bro.
To me. Right.
Every team has a DD, no drinking in the cars, and so we're going to be safe, but we're going to have a ton of fun. And then after the hunt is over, we come back to the house and party all night.
Is your dad like the Great Gatsby or something? What's going on over there in Dallas?
Like, my dad's nickname throughout college and in his adult life since college is Party J. In fact, he's in my phone as Party J. So, yeah.
Is he watching right now as he normally
He will definitely watch this when it's out. Yeah, no doubt about it.
We might have to get a Party J check-in in the near future. What is his? He comments on YouTube regularly. What's his comment name?
I think it's TX Big Dog. Texas Big Dog.
Yeah. Oh hell yeah!
He comments on every episode. Heed the something to do with the episode. So yeah,
he is young at heart. I like that. He's probably also maybe younger than me. How old is he?
He just turned 65.
He's older than me.
Close.
Christmas Eve.
Close.
Not close. But young at heart.
All right. And yes, just to close the door on all this, It might not matter that game, but it was fun to watch, and now it does set up. Has there been a better regular season finale that we can remember? And I have the short-term memory of like a bird when it comes to NFL seasons, but like a Week 18 Sunday night closer. Is there anything that's going to touch Lions-Vikings in the last, let's say, in the ATN HTC era since 2013? This is going to be amazing.
I think because of the nature of these two teams and like the story of the Vikings and the narrative of the Lions, I would say for me, yes, but I'm also with you that if you asked me to name 3 other Week 18 finales, like I'd be with a gun to my head. He gone. So.
Faux show. All right, let's take a break, and when we get back, some New Year's resolutions with our buddy James Palmer.
Football season is winding down, but there's still plenty of time to get into the action on Underdog. With higher lower pick'em entries, daily drafts, streaks, and more, there's never been a better time to start playing. And it's not just the NFL. The NBA is back. You've got NHL, college sports, so many options. So don't miss out. Just scan the QR code on your screen to download and play on the Underdog app. Or if you're not watching on YouTube, sign up with the code HTC and you can receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. Make the most of this NFL season before it's gone by playing along on Underdog. For our U.S. audience, only.
Happy New Year from Ricky and Thor. I'm a little under the weather, so I sound like shit, but still better than you guys. Happy New Year to my boys. I just had Conor Orr on Ricky's Ram Jam, my show, so check that out. Wouldn't be a Ricky Hollywood New Year without a Ricky Hollywood personal plug.
Of course.
Mwah. Love you guys. Heed the call. We're going to heed the call all through 2025. Love you. Have a great Happy New Year. Congrats, Justin.
Oh, I love Ricky. Happy New Year to Ricky Hollywood, and again to all the hedonists with us today. And Happy New Year's Eve to James Palmer, our Underdog compadre.
There he is.
Hello, team.
What's up,
Oh,
buddy?
guys, it's great to be here. I got the invite. I barely slept last night. This was Christmas for me. I don't know about anybody else.
I did forget to mention at the top of the show, we are going to go. I live right by the beach. We're going to go to the beach. I'm going to take Captain, the dog, and we're going to watch the last sunset of 2024. So that's kind of a new little wrinkle. That'll be fun. Hopefully the sun will be out.
Does your dog understand the concept like of a sunset versus sunrise or even a day? Do you think? What do you think?
He speaks to me. It's like a Son of Sam situation.
Okay.
And he said, "You must watch the sunset with me.
Okay.
Or die. Kill them all."
Definitive.
That's Captain in a nutshell. James, what do you got going on tonight?
Well, first off,
Embertown?
I feel like with dogs, they really have no clue about time because they never really enter REM sleep. They're just constantly like dozing off and waking back up. So I feel like it's one continuous day for a dog. We get dressed to the nines at the house. I wear a full tux. My son wears a full tux. My wife wears a fur, and we take a photo of our family in front of the Christmas tree, and then we put it in like some sort of like black and white look. So it's very like, this family went down on the Titanic type of vibe is what we're shooting for. And it's always just a really nice photo at the end.
I love that. By
we
the way,
come up with backstories too, like, you know, where we were from, where the family was from, and how we met our demise. Yeah.
wow, smash cut to Texas Big Dog, Justin's dad taking notes on adding it to his New Year's routine in Dallas. Wow, James. All right, buddy.
Yeah.
How are you? How's everything else?
Everything's great, guys. Everything's great. The travels have been good. The year's winding down. Here comes playoff football, and all anybody wants to talk about is the teams that aren't playing football after Sunday. That part annoys me. As we're going to start off 2025 with grievances, why do we love at this point to stop talking about the playoff teams and keep talking about all the teams that are going to regroup? I don't like that part of this year.
I think it's, you know, if it bleeds, it leads, and there's something to that. But you're right. I think that's a fair comment, James. I think and that's what we're not going to do, or maybe we will. I don't know what we're about to talk about because we're about to share some New Year's resolutions for NFL podcasters, or NFL insiders in the case of Palmer. But Palmer is also a podcaster himself. The '89 show with the great Steve Smith.
Mm-hmm.
What's Steve going to do? Is he going to get in the Hall of Fame? What's going on with that?
He's a finalist again. I think he deserves to be. I think it's a matter of time, for sure. And all I keep thinking about is like what Steve's party will be like. And now that we host a show together, there's no way I don't go.
You got to be invited.
If you were not, that would be controversial.
Yeah, it would really be. That would make the headlines of Us Weekly.
Do you think his appearance on our show earlier this year might get us in the door?
100%.
100%.
He doesn't do a lot of shows.
That feels
He doesn't
strong.
do a lot of shows. Steve doesn't whore himself out often. No.
All right. So, actually along the lines of your comment, James, I think a good way to get into it is I'll go first here. New Year's resolutions for NFL podcasters. I resolve to no longer get sucked in by teams who win the offseason, but ignore long-standing dysfunction in the greater operation. These are the teams who inevitably make the fat kid cannonball splashes in free agency, who use their premium draft capital because they sucked the year before on the buzziest prospects, who look by the end of an endless offseason filled with fan subreddit self-stimulation, Orlovsky and knob jobs from Bristol, and an NFL Films docuseries or 6. They look like greatly improved teams ready to return amongst the living. However, these are also the same teams that tend to operate on 3 years cycles of team builders and coaching staffs, teams that are impetuous when they should be patient, lethargic when they should be aggressive. And this last part is crucial. Isn't it funny how the most inept teams, the teams that fail not for years but for decades, are almost always run by ownership that missed the memo of their core role in the operation, sign the check, and move the fuck out of the way and let the actual football professionals do their jobs. So obviously I'm talking about my New York Jets, who may or may not have been my Super Bowl pick this year. I'm also talking about the Chicago Bears, who I believe I picked to make the playoffs. I'm talking about the Cleveland Browns, who I didn't pick to make the playoffs, but they were right on the bubble for me, and I know some other people did. The Indianapolis Colts, the Carolina Panthers to a lesser extent or more extent. These are the teams that I vow in 2025 to have my antenna up and not ignore, but be very wary of getting on board with these teams, because when there is rot in the foundation, the house cannot stand.
In what world, when the Jets hire fill in the blank coach and GM, are you not crowing about them about a month and a half from now? Like I admire your perseverance here with this resolution. I do not believe like with most New Year's resolutions.
That's what I was going to say.
I do not believe for a second that you won't be riding the Jets horse along a field in the middle of, mid February, telling us how everything good is about to happen. Just because you're an optimistic Jets fan too, and you're noble, but
I don't like
come
your
on.
tone, Dog. I mean, why are you so angry about this?
Well, I'm not angry, but it's like, with the other teams, I get that you're not going to be like riding the Chicago Bears train. That doesn't require much restraint. But to add the Jets to that, I'm just saying that a little bit of warning when we make these, a resolution for ourselves. It's like, I want you to fulfill it. I believe in you. I don't.
Do you though? Because it really sounds like you believe in me right now, Mark.
With the other teams, I do. Not with
basically
the
cut me off to shout me down for being such a fool.
No, specifically with the Jets, just with the Jets, and that's because you're
that's
still
the point, Dog. Plug
Okay.
in, buddy. That the Jets are the most obvious example of this, and if you are a fan of the team, that is even more reason why you got to have your guard up and be wary of it. Now, if we're talking about the Jets, I was wary of the 2024 Jets, but I eventually gave in to this version of them where they dodged through all the raindrops. But especially after Woody Johnson being fully exposed as the fool that he is this year, you have to protect yourself if you are a fan of these teams. And if you're a prognosticator or an NFL analyst, because it wasn't just me, by the way, that was excited about the Jets going into the season. A lot of people were, and all those other teams. How many hype/hope pieces did we hear about the Chicago Bears going into the season?
Right, sure.
And in the case of the Bears, the coaching staff was their undoing, and now ownership is in the crosshairs of the fan base as well. That's
I always thought it was
my
a telltale
point.
sign when you couldn't get out of the huddle in training camp that things weren't going to go well.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, Mark, I'm sorry that I'm going to disappoint you in a couple of months, but the point of this is that I'm trying to learn from what is an all-time, forever truth about the NFL, that if the operation isn't sound, the roster will not turn into a winner. So that's
I believe
my
in you.
resolution.
I believe in
Do
you.
you though? You've upset me with this.
Well, that wasn't my goal. Like
On New Year's Eve, no less, Mark.
Yeah.
Well, I will silence myself, but I think I threw out just a concern that everyone watching on the show right now feels the same way as me. So we'll see. Good luck to you.
All right, how about you, James?
Okay. First off, yours seems very much like when somebody like goes for the run, their first run of the year, New Year's Day, and they pull a hammy, and then the idea of running every day is just gone immediately after day one. You see everybody out there with their little gloves and their little wraparound hat over their ears. Yeah.
But you know what I do want? I do want my friends to give me a chance and believe that I can.
Yeah, exactly.
Change. That's all I asked for.
Yeah,
I've been put in a villain role that I'm
the guy
not
in the window watching everybody run by, going, "They're not going to be here tomorrow. They're not going to be here tomorrow. They're not going to be here Saturday." Yeah, he's that guy. Okay, I'm going to go with this. I travel a ton. I spend as much time at all these training camps as I can. So this is a little bit similar to Dan's, but a little bit different. I need to make sure I am rather sifting through the bullshit of training camp, because it's a very it's a very loose-lipped environment. It's an environment to talk to all your sources, get a lot of information. You can talk to a million people coming off the field. James, check notes before reporting anything out there, because these are the things that I'd like to remember when training camp rolls around. This is my New Year's resolution. Good teams are good teams. Don't drink the Kool-Aid of, well, are they going to have a down year? No, the Chiefs will stay good. It's fine. They're
Bills, Buffalo.
Yes, the training camp will go as they usually go. They won't wow you oftentimes in training camp. They are just a steady ship that is leading into the regular season. The second part is, there will always be the players that I love, and I speak to them one-on-one, and they will tell me things are going to be different this year. They are trained to be optimistic, but do not drink from their tiny little paper cup of delusion. Make sure you avoid those conversations. The third part is, when you go to a camp, bad teams, bad players beating other bad players is a very deceptive thing to watch. So before, James, you go and report about what happened at that camp, visit a playoff team before you tell everybody that what I saw at Colts practices, this receiving core is outstanding. Because guess what? The DBs are trash. So, like, bad players beating bad players is not a sign of a good team. And so when you're there, and you guys know this, Connor, you know this specifically too, do not go talk to the new beat reporter that's been there on the beat for a year or two saying, listen, I think they got something here. Go to the grizzled vet that is just steadfast with his negativity, that is oftentimes right. They've been to more camps than they can remember, but it looks like crap and they know it. So that's my other part. And then the last part is avoid the player that says, this is the best shape I've ever been in my life.
Trope alert.
I've dropped 30 pounds. I'm now going to play here. Or I gained 30 pounds. They want me to play here. That is a sign of we don't know what the hell to do with you as a player.
Right.
So we're trying to find a way to fit you into the roster. Avoid that conversation as well as keep an eye out for so and so.
Trope alert.
Yeah.
Trope alert.
Keep an eye out
Trope
for this
alert.
guy. He's dropped 30
Trope
pounds and
alert.
he's going to be an inside
Trope
linebacker now.
alert.
Ugh.
It's worse only than the guy who comes out in April or May and says, you have no idea how injured I was last year. Like, I secretly was playing my shittiest football with a broken neck and you didn't know it. You know, that's a terrible one.
Yeah.
Red
So
flag.
I need to be patient during training camp.
Those are
All
good.
right, Connor, as a man who has also been to many a training camp and has covered the sport from all different angles, what is your New Year's resolution?
James's was excellent. It was really good. I would say on a very sub level, to kind of put a bow on the two of yours together, I would say to kind of close off this idea. Like, the Texans are the perfect example where if it goes well one season, that the NFL is this steady ascent, and to really challenge that, every year you play well down the stretch, doesn't matter shit. going into the next season. But my main crusade, and I hope that everyone will join me in this, is I'm only allowing myself for every podcast that I do from here on out, from every article that I write, to only use one dumb fucking meaningless statistic from some stat service that doesn't fucking mean anything. Okay, so it's just like, and because here's the thing, and I think you guys all know this, James. I know you know this. Mm-hmm. We mystify the process, right? And then we talk to these coaches after the season, and it's like, wow, did you come up with this thing where it's like, on third downs they do this tendency, and it's just like, no, the right guard had diarrhea, so we double blitzed the right guard every single fucking play and then smashed the quarterback's face in. Like, let's talk about football the way that it is. Let's ignore the goddamn noise. Let's watch the games and let's come to a legitimate conclusion. The Vikings choked the life out of the Packers by playing really good man defense. Period. I don't need to, Next Gen Stats doesn't need to be involved in this conversation. We saw it. That's what it means. And I think that everybody watching at home will appreciate it too. We can get rid of this goddamn bullshit and we can enjoy football.
Did anybody else time that? I think that was the third fastest rant, according to Next Gen Stats, by a podcaster on a New Year's Eve.
Like miles per hour. Who gives a flying shit? Like, he's fast. He's faster than the guy chasing him. End of story.
I think something that has changed so much in the last, 10 years, maybe 15 years, in terms of how people cover the sport is it feels like if you don't have that information in your write-up, you're somehow being too surface level or you're not part of the revolution. And so I think in a way,
you're right.
It's almost like even if people felt this way, you feel compelled to include all this data because that's where the smart football is going. But what you're pointing out, I guess, is that ultimately is just a bunch of eyewash and window dressing, where if you actually just make a clean observation, you don't need that data point. I think maybe, is it fair to say that maybe there's an in-between ground where if it's a useful data point.
He's given himself one. Conor,
yeah, you're giving yourself one. But in general, like a useful data point that backs up what you're saying, that's helpful. But when it gets too granular, it goes from like reading a smart football piece to something that just feels like you're reading a math equation. And that's not what, like, personally I grew up like enjoying reading. Like if you listen or read an SI Super Bowl article from 1992 or whatever, like, and then you read one now, like, is it a better article now because it has SI might be a bad example because that's your parent publication, Conor. But like,
awesome, Dan.
But at the same time,
1954.
Yeah, exactly. Like, is it actually making the product better to have all this data in it, or is it better just to do it the way you're saying? I think you make a good point.
What did Aqib Talib say? It's like it's for the people who would rather read sheet music than listen to the song, right? And it's like it's one of these things where
said that.
Yeah, I think it's on Tom Curran's.
I was about to say it sounds more like Talib Kweli, not Aqib Talib, but
I think it's on Tom Curran's Twitter bio. I think that's where I saw it from. But I think, and this is for me too, because I do find that it's I find a lot of times it's a crutch, right? And it's something that we can lean on when, for example, perfect thing. Like last night, it's, 11:45. You're trying to put a bow in the power rankings. And it's like, okay, you look at, whatever service you want to have. And it's like, okay, Drake May was 1 of 8 against the blitz. Well, okay, but then let's go watch all those snaps. Like why did they blitz him in that situation? Where are they blitzing him? What's the purpose behind it? Because blitz means 100 different things. And let's clarify, because like I feel like so often we're just like lost in this. And the comedian Dan Soder does a great bit about, he's childhood friends with Mike McDaniel, right? And it's just like Mike McDaniel will tell him before the game, like, oh, their defensive tackle sucks, so we're just going to run to him. This is one of the smartest coaches in the NFL. This is what you do. This is what scouting and game planning is. You hammer the shittiest player on the other team. Like, let's kind of be more aware of how a lot of this stuff works. Big guy versus small guy, fast guy versus slow guy. Like, we can talk about it in this way, and I think it makes it accessible.
Riley Moss shit sandwich.
I think Conor deserves a round of applause on this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's also, I wonder if another part of this, Conor, is I think people that cover the sport but never played the game are targets at times as not worthy of giving true analysis. So some people might be compelled, even from a self-consciousness angle, just to start getting very analytically driven in your data, because that is a way to I guess cut the loss that you're suffering according to others. I think there's part of that too, like that whole culture, which bothers me as well. Like, well, if you didn't play the game, you're not worthy to have insight on which is just ridiculous, but it's something that's out there as well.
Yeah, and please don't misinterpret. I don't want anyone out there to think that I'm like doing that, because I think, for example, my mentor was Jenny Vrentas, who's now an enterprise reporter at the New York Times, like I think a biologist at Penn State, one of the smartest people that I've ever met. And she would do these stories, and by the time she was done with them, like I was convinced that she could call the offense, like, and she knew it frontwards and backwards. And so to say like, oh, if you never played, that is hogwash and it's complete baloney. I think Mike McDonald, perfect example. Like he is very upfront with the fact that like I'm a high school football player who is an NFL head coach. He just happens to be very smart, and I think there's a seat at the table for everybody. But what we can't do, like I almost feel like the analytics conversation is just as exclusionary as the you can't talk unless you play conversation. And I feel like that what I'm really preaching here is like, let's find a middle ground here. Like let's find the sweet spot, because I do think there is one for sure.
I like it. Good luck.
I feel like we're like at Syracuse in their school of journalism, and Conor Orr has come by to deliver
Absolutely.
a sermon. Yeah. All right, beautiful. Mark?
Nice.
Well, I think mine kind of fits with each of these to some degree. And it's pretty personal because, like Dan, you and I, I think I didn't mean to come hard at you with the Jets thing. That wasn't the tone I was trying to set there. But like we went through like a
you
lot
upset
this
him right
year.
Before he walked the dog. He wasn't
I know.
walking the
Well, I
sunset
didn't
with
mean
the
to.
dog, and now you made him sad.
I'm not taking captain to see the sunset now.
New Year's is canceled.
New Year's is over.
I was only asking what a dog understands.
There's no REM sleep.
No REM sleep at all.
Poor dog has no REM sleep.
They never.
That's not fair for a dog. I mean, I think that we've gone through a lot, Dan and I, like since the last over the last calendar year. But one thing I was thinking about with like just podcasting about football in general, I have two little parts. Number one is that I used to, like at the NFL, do a lot of features where you'd get on the phone like and talk to like Bill Lazor for 25 minutes and write your story off of real information, like a lot of what Conor and James do. And my goal for this year was to re-enter the world of talking to people who coach, who play, to get real information versus, to your point, like just data. And I just really miss doing that. And I'm not trying, maybe I'm meant to be funny here or something. Like it's more of a serious point where it's like, I think it adds to what the podcaster can do versus by the time it's November and you're just spinning off of like numbers and results, like getting tactile information relationships. And there's that. But then the second thing, this idea that when I pick a team, that then they go off some sort of sled ride off of hell into hell because I've cursed them. I'm never going to listen to anyone. I don't care if you're some goon on the subreddit. I don't care if you're someone else in my ear. It's like I'm never going to stop falling in love with certain teams during the season that capture my imagination, because this is a 40+ year journey of following football for me. And thank you, Justin, for coming in with the little, music and the soundbite. But you're like, this is what I'm not going to get baked into. I like when you fall in love, it's messy, right? It's sometimes people aren't happy that it happened to you. Maybe it didn't happen when you thought it would happen. When I fell in love with the Cardinals this year, like, did it go right? That they can handle that. These are grown individuals, men and women running the team, players on the field. These people are paid well. They are dealt with correctly. They are high up in our society. Like the idea that I curse them is ridiculous. This is on them.
What's your resolution?
My resolution is that I will never veer away from like, oh, Mark wore an Eagles sweater, and then
we want that. We
Yes.
want that.
Well,
but don't. Let's also. There is a curse, though. I mean, let's be real about that, though.
Cursed it. Real
That's
quick.
TBD, but I absolutely will never veer off of my passions.
Don't do it, buddy.
Okay.
We
I just
always
gotta-
want.
I gotta
Seth
chime
on.
in real quick. I have to bounce and do another podcast, and my goal is to do 3 analytic mentions within the first 5 minutes.
Do it.
And
I'm
that's
not
my
gonna
goal.
listen.
Okay, guys, I love you. Merry New Year. And I will all talk to you shortly, individually and collectively.
You're the
So
man,
love you,
James. We'll see you on the other side.
Later.
Mark, nobody would ever want you to change.
Well, I don't think that the three of you remaining here do necessarily, but some do. I can promise you.
You're
that.
saying James did?
No, James just left, but like I'm including. I think some would want me to make some adjustments.
I'll use an example. Like Jason Zumwalt wishes you would stop. Or what are some other teams from the past?
Jonathan Gannon, yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan Gannon would love for you not to bring up the Cardinals again. And you know, I didn't buy into.
Shut your mouth. Don't talk about them.
I believe there was a Vikings team a couple of years ago that
Yes, I mean
brought to its knees.
The problem is that the list is long. That's the problem. So.
Mark cursed the Titans the year he jumped on the bandwagon after the Titans beat the
Titans.
Packers on Thursday Night Football, and then they lost every game for the rest of the season. They fired their general manager, they fired their head coach, and now they're in position to possibly get the #1 pick. So that curse is still ongoing.
I think, Mark, it's almost like if we were to go back into the closet there at the New York City Irish pub on New Year's Eve in 2001. Yeah, can you take the other pea coat that's on the ground? Yeah, should you? That's debatable. Like, should you continue to be doing something that is negatively impacting, like as you point out, the players, the coaches, the fan base? Like, is it worth it to share this love you have when it hurts people?
Well, these are fair questions that you've raised. I still have, roughly 8 hours to figure out my direction on this, but, I continue to follow my own compass. That's what I'll say.
For hashtag content, I want you absolutely to continue.
Well, part of this is for podcasters. Like, don't remove fire and brimstone and elements from a show. That's also just bad podcasting, Teams be damned.
The fact that you curse teams, that we know for sure. That is fact. Will Mark continue to do it? His resolution is yes. And we love you for that.
It is currently yes.
Who will it be in 2025? The damned. All right. Justin, did you have one? I don't know. No. Look at the look. No, don't worry about it. Justin's a busy man. Justin just got engaged. Justin's flying high.
He's got a big scavenger hunt tonight.
Got a big scavenger hunt. That he'll
Just did all the power rankings graphics during this taping so that I don't have to do it after we're done. So I was a little distracted.
Are you on Jessica's scavenger hunt team, or is she being sent out with? Okay, I was gonna say maybe send her out with another bunch of like giant lumberjacks and see how that goes. A little test early in the engagement.
Wait, what?
Well, just send her out with a different scavenger hunt team and just see what comes
But you
of
said
it.
who should she go with? A bunch of lumberjacks?
Like Texas lumberjack types that are just
handsome,
like
burly
seeking,
men?
Yeah, they're like looking for like a golden squirrel inside of a shop. I don't know.
Yeah.
Justin, how are you not hitting the Harbaugh drop right now?
Oh, right. I told you I'm distracted.
What do you got? You got sex addiction? You got a problem with sex?
No. This is
Sex-
just
you
it's
addicted to
a
sex?
test of love.
Sex addiction or something?
I would not send your future wife off with a bunch of lumberjackers on New Year's Eve. If you're looking for advice, unsolicited.
I wouldn't either.
But you trust
not
her.
because
Yeah.
not because I don't trust her, but because I would like to spend New Year's Eve
Sure.
with my fiance. I do trust her fully. I know she'll wear the ring anyway, so everyone would see it and be like, "Damn, she's betrothed. Too bad, because she is a bombshell." You know what I mean?
I love it. Fair. Actually, you know how it works in society.
That's not how guys think, by the way.
Correct.
Like,
all
just
those
to let you know,
virile,
just to-
masculine lumberjacks, they're going to see the big rock on her finger, and she's like, "Up, hands off." So
That's how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah. You ever watch
if that's
The
how
Office?
it worked, I don't know if we'd be together, but that's how it works.
Also, Michael Scott once famously said, BFD, engaged ain't married. So
Right.
In college, one of my frat brothers told me, just because there's a goalie doesn't mean you can't score. So,
well, that sounds like a criminal type.
Yeah.
that sounds like a frat guy mentality.
Sounds like something
which is,
that, yeah.
which is why I've disassociated with that former
Yeah.
life of mine.
Absolutely. All right. Good stuff. And listen, like Mark, just to close, like that I will always want my team to be successful, but I also I'm in a place where I am no longer blind to the reality that they are a dumpster fire. And I need to, and all Jets fans, as long as Woody Johnson is running that team, need to understand that absent major changes, this is just going, this cycle, it's not a coincidence that they've missed for 14 years the playoffs and that they have had 5 straight 10-loss seasons and haven't had a winning season in 9 years. Like, at a certain point, you need to protect yourself. And that's where I'm at.
Like eyes open, and I see you practicing that, and you've been in the last couple of months a bit of a different character with the Jets in terms of your approach to the disastrous ownership and everything else. So I hate
it. They've made me more cynical as a fan than I've ever been, but I can't help it. And like, just to connect it, because how can you not? Like, same thing with the Browns. Like, we can get excited about them getting the number 1 pick, and I don't think I have been waving my flag for the Browns. But you believe in them. Like, we know what's going on the text threads. Like, you get excited about them in the primetime games. You want them to do well. But Jimmy Haslam remains a major problem there as well. And that's how Deshaun Watson got on the team. So, all teams or fan bases that are stuck with bad ownership need to just...
I'd ask you, I think I'd ask all of us, but it's like, let's say they, in the next 40 days, hire Ben Johnson and trade up for the number 2 pick to get like Cam Ward. Then suddenly, it's like, wait.
But that's okay. That's okay.
But that's, yeah.
But it doesn't mean that they're going to be fixed. And that is what I'm saying. Like,
right. When they hire Ron Rivera and your optimism remains at a steady level, I will be like, I get that. So,
or do they bring back Rex Ryan?
Do you want like a fun little note on that before we go?
Yeah.
For the shits of it, what I was advised to do when I was asking about that, like Ron Rivera, Rex Ryan, was to say, read the actual tea leaves of this and wonder if the Jets are doing their due diligence now on veteran defensive coordinators, because the eventual head coach will be a young first-time offensive play caller.
Hello.
So
makes sense, and I hope that's what they do. The second that I have no hope for my team, Mark, is when I'm out of here, because then I don't love football anymore.
But don't take my. I was more suggesting that of all my friends who are football fans, and I mean this, you have remained the most, you are the most optimistic. Through the darkness, you've remained optimistic. So when you tell me that you're going to not jump ship, but just the whole Jets thing is not going to affect you, it's like that. You say what's best for the show. That concerns me a little.
Well, I'm a little bit disconnected from the operation in a way that I've never been before. But let's see if they do hire Ben Johnson and get a GM like that knows what he's doing. You still have to worry about the dumb owner ruining it. And that's what every Jet fan needs to worry about. Anyway, pivot.
I do believe in you, though. Like, this idea that it extends to me not believing in you is not correct.
I appreciate that. I believe in you. Connor, we believe in you.
Yes.
As we end our final show of 2024, we want to say goodbye to Connor here and thank you, buddy. Sincerely. Give me some music, Justin. Stop being distracted, Justin. Thank you, buddy, for everything you've done for us this year and everything you're going to do with us as we move forward. We really appreciate in what was at times scary summer that you were immediately ride or die, and you've made the show so much better. So thank you, buddy.
Thank you guys. I mean, this is, gosh, it's the best. I was just telling Ricky Hollywood this. It's like it brightens my week, genuinely. And to connect with all the fans from ATN and to be able to interact with them. And, you know, I was saying this when Mark and I went to London and we met a lot of them. Everyone deserves a chance to feel like that once in your life, where you walk into a room and you feel like you're a part of the goddamn Beatles, you know? And, you know, for those people to make that possible, I think it's, you know, there's like a really deep kind of emotional thing there, you know? So just know that it's really appreciated. And, you know, I love being here.
I would just say, like, you could listen, if you just listen just to today's episode, you would understand tangibly the difference that Conor makes in any conversation, whether it's a game recap or the nugget we just got about the Jets coaching search. He's out there in the field. He's a true reporter's reporter. And I mean, I feel lucky to be working with the favorite people I worked with at our last job, my truly favorite people. And Conor's right at the heart of it. And you were right, Dan, that the minute we were trying to form this team, you know, a lot of like, we'll see what happens with certain agents and people and all this stuff. Conor right away was like, sure, let's do it. Like, and no mess, just like, yes, I'm with you guys. We're here. And it's changed this season and it will change future seasons. So we do love you.
Thank you, Con, man. Happy New Year's.
You too, buddies. Have a good one.
And that leaves the three of us. Mark, thank you, buddy, for riding together. This has been a great year and many more to come. And Justin, just like Conor, immediately was down. We connected with each other, and Underdog was instrumental in obviously getting it done and bringing us all together. So Tim and the whole Underdog team, thank you to them as well, and giving us a chance to continue doing what we love, which is this show and connecting with the hedonists out there. Yeah, this has been very special, guys.
Yeah, and thank you to all these people that came with us. You know, this is where I start to get weird, so I love you.
Justin.
And thanks to you guys for the call, because there's no one else. I heeded that call as soon as you sent it out, and there's no one else I'd rather be podcasting with. Best job I ever had, so thank you.
Love you. We're doing a show with the people we want to do the show with, and we hope the audience understands that and feels that. So happy New Year's to everyone. We'll be back, obviously, to finish out the regular season and then through the playoffs and beyond. But until then, hedonists, have a great, safe New Year's Eve, and remember, in 2025 and beyond, heed the call.